I'm Kamerie Gibson. Welcome to the Kamerie Gibson Show, the podcast. I believe that one of the most precious gifts you can share with someone is your story. Pain has purpose and stories can change lives. Your journey to become more inspired and transformed by the lives of those around us starts now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kamerie Gibson Show, where we talk about transforming our pain into power. And today I have a special guest with me here today. He goes by J.L. Kirven, or however you would like to introduce yourself, Jeremiah. Would you mind introducing yourself to the audience for me, please?
Absolutely. My name is Jeremiah Kirven. In my byline, I go by JL, just for short. I'm a sports writer, upcoming sports writer. I used to work in Cincinnati, Detroit, Louisville, but now freelancing, sort of doing my own thing, and just taking it one step at a time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love that. Thank you. And off the record, Jeremiah and I were talking about how we met. We couldn't remember, was it in person or maybe through the group chat? Maybe.
Yeah, I think it was because I know definitely it was through NABJ, just trying to meet, other aspiring journalists, other, creatives. And you were always somebody that just popped out with your, versatility and creativity. And I think we just sort of like met through the grapevine, but we've always just stayed in touch.
Yes. Okay, so not everybody knows what NABJ is. So would you mind explaining to the audience
Yeah, no
what's
problem. It's the National Association of Black Journalists. It's the organization that's over 50 years old. It brings, journalists, creatives of color together. Every year there's always a big, party, a big convention where we get to meet, network, share ideas, and we try to, stay connected throughout the year, make friendships, because journalism can be sort of a lonely business. So it's always nice to have, peers and people that look like you fighting for you in your corner.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you being a Black journalist, right? What would you say are the usual common challenges for Black journalists? For those who may not know, what are those challenges?
I would say for one, um, over the years, I mean, for the longest, it was just trying to get people of color in the newsroom. You had our stories being written by people who didn't know how to relate to us. And that's where, you see old bylines of, just the way that we're written about and the way that we're portrayed in the media being really slanted and just really misguided. Over the years, that's gotten better to where, you have Black reporters, but we're still trying to get to where, you got Black editors, Black management, to where, the bylines, the titles, the stories that we're actually pursuing are being pushed through Black creatives. So it's, slowly but surely getting better, but it's still got a long way to go.
What do you think we still need that's not working right now? What do Black journalists need that we don't have?
I would just say our own platforms. Having platforms like this, you're a great example of just, breaking the mold of feeling like you have to be, an employee of a already established platform, an already established newspaper or news station where you have to sort of fit their mold. We live in a day and age where, you got social media, you got people that can literally, create their own platforms out of thin air. And you love to see it because people are really giving their raw, genuine selves, raw, genuine reporting, and it's not being watered down by people with misguided agendas.
I didn't think about that. In 2018, when I attended the NABJ convention in Detroit, I changed my major from journalism to film. And only because I felt like journalism was keeping me, I felt like I had to be somebody I wasn't, even with the voice, and like you said, like someone editing my story to make it like sound politically correct or whatever. And I just thought that by being in film, I'd have more flexibility to be my authentic self. Not gonna lie to you, being I guess from the hood, I'm from South Central LA in California. I I always felt like I wouldn't fit there anyways, Like I always felt like I was an imposter. And they'd realize that I was really from the hood and I didn't belong there. So I think I kind of took that on, and I'm not gonna lie to you, that's kind of the reason why I changed and I pivoted. But another, like you said, me starting my own podcast platform has been my way of taking charge of my own narrative. But as a black man, what do you try to make sure you implement when you're writing your stories and your articles?
Well, since my background is in sports, it's really important for me to, really connect with athlete stories. The NBA is predominantly black, the NFL is predominantly black. But if you look into the press boxes, they're predominantly white. And I'm not saying, white journalists can't tell a story well, but, you know, when you're talking about people from two different worlds and the way you view this person, the way you hear this person's words is because how another person wrote that, it can be cloudy sometimes, where you get moments where people don't understand necessarily the context of certain things that a black reporter would just get from jump. So mainly just when I'm in the field, I just really try to make sure that like an athlete feels heard, trusted. I've got to write something that I know they may not like. It's just being honest and upfront. Reaching out, really being like, hey, I don't want you to feel like you can't trust me or anything. Is this right? Is this wrong? Do I need to, recircle back? And it's just that extra step of really trying to make sure that they feel safe in the process. Because, I mean, they don't have to talk to me. So it's like, you taking the time out of your day to, put words that I can use to put to paper. I have to respect that you're being vulnerable with me. So I have to do my due diligence to at least make you feel like you're not being gypped.
That's so real, so important. Okay, so I want to know how you think and how you would go about this. A lot of people have been reporting John Morant's, behavior however they see fit. And I'm not gonna lie, as a, identify myself as a black woman, mixed race, I don't always think that. Sometimes I feel like white reporters, white media, they use the mishaps of black athletes as an opportunity to like shit on us or to like talk down on us. It's like, here goes this nigga. And it's like we get to get called niggas again, even though we're rich, we're athletes, we're on TV. That's just me, right? I'm an Aquarius. I believe you're an Aquarius as well, right?
I am.
Okay,
Indeed,
so
I am.
we're thinkers and we're innovators. And I'm like, nah, I don't like that. So as a writer, as a reporter, how would you go about reporting John Morant's behavior in the media while still protecting the black male, like, image and not like going in on him? How
Absolutely.
would
I think for a situation like Ja, it's difficult because obviously he's putting himself in tough situations, and when you got ramifications, you have to report on that. You can't just sort of like sweep it under the rug. I think where people are really starting to miss the big picture is all the commentary. The opinions on why he's moving this way or like why he hangs out with the people he hangs out with. Like if you're not from that world, you really don't have a clue about it. Like, I mean, what is he supposed? If these are the people that he grew up with around in his life, and their support is the reason why he feels like he is where he is today, you can't really expect him to just when you make it, you got to start hanging around the circles we expect you to hang around. So it's like there's got to be a level of understanding towards his situation, but also accountability. Like obviously, you don't want to see him make mistakes that could ruin his career, ruin his life. But at the same time, it's just this sort of the way that we just sort of jump on celebrities and athletes when they make mistakes. Like we aren't human as well. Like we don't have a friend, that's maybe not the greatest influence, but we know why we keep them around in our lives and what they bring to the table for us personally. I feel like you just got to have reporters who are just more sensitive to that.
I love that. I love that. Oh, you articulated so well too. I love me Aquariuses. Anyways,
Absolutely.
okay. So, has there ever been an article that you wrote in which someone reached out to you and told you that you represented them well? Or have you ever had an experience in which you felt proud in how you told a story and represented like an athlete or a game or something like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I would say there was one story I did in college about it was about a coach who was a former player. And the reason why she was coaching, she wanted to be in the league, but injuries started to derail her career. And at first, the story started off very, basic, just like, oh, former legends back on the staff, a couple of nice quotes from players, and I turned it in the first draft and just felt like it didn't go deep enough. Um, she had no idea why I kept coming. I kept coming back to practice, and usually when I go to practice, I'm talking to the players and trying to find my next story. But I kept asking to talk to this coach just to dig a little bit deeper. And she was like, kind of like, yo, like this is like the third day we didn't talk. Like I'm cool with talking to you, but like, what are you trying to write? And for some reason, I just really wanted to understand her on a deeper level, just her path and her journey. So, I asked if I could reach out to her mom. She thought it was hilarious that I wanted to talk to her, but her mom, had such great positive things to say and gave me such insight. And then I reached out to family, friends, and just like I found myself just sort of in this like whirlwind of like, wow, I really just want to know like everything I could know to give this story the justice it deserves. And by the time I got to the fourth and fifth draft, it was just something. It was unbelievable where I started and got to. And I put the story out. I didn't think much of it. And she had called me and she was just like, wow, like I can't believe that like you really like captured the way I've been feeling these last few months just through, talking to the people you talk to and just your due diligence with the story. Coming back, read, because like there were times where like I would sort of circle back on a fact. Like I'm like, oh, I don't think I got this right. Is this sure? Like just circling back and she's like, oh no, like this is how it happened. Like I maybe like simplified it too much, but since you're showing interest, I'll go into it. So, actually like giving the details fully and not just, um, not just cutting corners on the story. Like it felt really good to go the extra mile because I know when people read stories about themselves, things can be going great, but as soon as you like read something about you that's not true, like it could just set you off because it's like, yo, like I shut down, told you what I told you, and you still wrote the wrong thing anyway. So just that going that extra step, making that extra phone call just to make sure I got the story right. It just is it's always carried me. Even though it's been years since I've written that story, it's always one of my favorites.
And like you say, like it feels good for the person who's being interviewed to like know that you went the extra mile too. And I just me doing interviews with people on my podcast just before then. Once you interview somebody and get somebody's story, it's like a certain relationship you have with them, like forever almost.
Right.
It's like and I love those. I cherish them so much. Like I think all we have is our story. Like, and if somebody's willing to like hear it and want to do it well, like there's honor in that. There's privilege in that. So I'm glad you did that with that coach. That's really good.
Because there's a lot of entitlement that can come with being a journalist. Like you wouldn't just walk up to somebody on the street and just expecting them to delve into their deepest, darkest secrets. But when you put that badge on and you like, hey, I work for the CBS, there's just this expectation that people are supposed to share and feel trusted with you. And it's like, no, you got to work for that. You got to show that you deserve to have that information and that you're going, properly take care of it and do right by it.
But where do you think that comes from though? Because no, you're so freaking right, man. That's why people think just getting an interview is, wait, real quick. You notice everybody's interviewing people now, like all types of people. And not everybody necessarily like understands that a lot of it has to do with listening. Right. I don't know if you noticed that too, if you're watching people's platforms, but I feel like some people that are even doing the interviewing, they tend to like over insert their own selves or like what they want into the story too. And I feel like you're missing the point. Like you have an opportunity to like really do something with somebody here, but you're so caught up in whatever you have going on that you're missing it. So what do you think, how can you go about being genuine and getting that trust from interviewees?
It's great that you bring that up because I think that's probably one of the hardest things about journalism now. The deadlines and everything. It's like when you pitch a story, like editors are expecting you to basically know the whole story before you even written a word. It was like, wait a second, I ain't even interviewed this person. All I've, reached out for some interest, done a little research, and like people are so obsessed for, a viral click or, uh, just a big story that they're not even like going into the process willing to listen and be surprised by the story. It's like, oh, I know what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask these particular questions because I'm expecting this particular answer. And then by the time I write, it's just plug and play with their quotes. And it's like, nah, you got to actually like do your due diligence, find something that you're genuinely curious about, and then just go on the ride, like talk to them, have an initial interview. The first interview doesn't have to be the 60 minutes perfect. Oh, spill your guts out to me. Like just sort of just share some a little bit about yourself. It's a genuine exchange. And then, as you further go through the process of talking to other people, circling back, oh, this is what I talked to your grandmother and she told me about it this time where such and such and such. And then you really start leveling, opening them up. Like good journalism takes time, and when you put so much pressure on journalists to turn around stories on a day or 2 days notice, you really do miss a lot of the stuff that really makes great storytelling what it's supposed to be.
Dang, Jeremiah, you saying that is triggering another thought, but that has to do with just the production and just the capitalistic world we live in, which is it becomes less about what we're doing this for, but more about like just getting it out there, getting the job done, getting the money, getting the story. Because you got to think about it, these news companies, these media companies, they have competition. They have to pay people's bills. But I can see how you can miss the purpose of getting a story in journalism when you're focused up on that. Um, Shoot, even with us being young in our 20s and having to work and not being able to fully, be creators like the way we want to be because we have to pay. And we got to eat.
Right.
Um, do you have any frustrations with that? Just
Oh,
how,
very a lot, especially now, going into the freelancing route. It's sort of a double-sided coin. So being a freelancer is nice because I can pick my own projects. I can take further time. But yeah, it's also like for instance, the site I write for now, I could work for an entire month, turn in my invoice at the end of that month, and then I'm not getting paid for that invoice until the end of the next month. So it's like basically going 8 weeks without seeing, compensation for that work. And I mean, that's a common practice throughout the industry. Freelancers is basically, oh, we'll pay you when you pay you. You just need to be happy that we gave you a platform. And, it's already, that's hard, but it's also hard just being, a regular biweekly journalist. I'm coming from Gannett, and anybody who knows anything about Gannett knows they are ripping off journalists, grinding them into the ground and spitting them out. Um, it's if a kid asked me straight up, was like, "Hey, should I go into journalism? I want to support myself." It's like you really need to think about that, like, because it's gonna be a lot of lonely. It's gonna be a lot of hard nights, a couple ramen noodles before you really make it. You're gonna have to learn how to like tuna and Ritz crackers or something like that. It's gonna be like that. Anyway.
no, but you letting them know what it's really gonna be because when I saw 40,000 in college, it didn't click when I graduated. 40,000 they said was the average journalist salary, right? Like, I don't know why that didn't click to me when I was in college. I just was not thinking like an adult. And if that was the case, like I would have changed. I would have just honestly, so many of my friends are talking about college may not even be as important,
Mhm.
anymore for some people. Do you have any thoughts on that as far as college and
I would agree. I would say my all my my best experience in college came from my internships. Now, of course, the way the structure is, you got to go to college to get those internships and meet the right people and network and stuff. So, you got to kind of play the game a little bit. But there are a lot of people, that are doing great work that didn't get a journalism degree, um, or took their own route, understand that they have, experiences and wisdom from other fields, and they're using it to tell their stories. And I mean, in terms of writing, like being a good writer, you don't have to go to school for that. As long as you understand, grammar and writing tight, you don't really have to spend 30,000 a year at an institution to do that. You just gotta have, patience and a grind to realize that making it to that level might take a little bit longer just because you're gonna have to, really prove yourself to the people that only want to, hand out jobs to the people that went to, PWIs and have that general education.
Did you have a support system while you were in school growing up to be able to pursue these dreams of being a journalist?
Yes and no. So when I was in school, I had a professor, my first 2 years there that changed my life. Like we're best friends to this day. I don't even consider it like he's so much more than a professor. He's like a grandfather, brother, somebody I can just call on at any moment. But when he left, like I realized just how alone I was. He was the only black professor and only black teaching professor on the staff. So when he left, it left a tremendous void in my life and also my education. And at that point, like I really just started like putting my head down and like just trying to get through it. While when he was here, it was like I was asking questions and I was curious about everything, like I mean, I was instead of going to parties, I was going to like keynote speakers with him. Like, oh, I didn't mind reading extra work or doing extra assignments because I mean, as good of a professor he was, he rode the fuck out of me because he saw the potential. He's like, yo, you're one of the only black students in this class. Like, I don't need you questioning me when I give you an extra assignment. You know why I'm giving you an extra assignment. And I was cool with it because it was just genuine. And it was like he was willing, he was putting so much time into me that I wanted to, reciprocate that. But when he left, he ended up retiring. Um, it was just so hard to lose that. It was like, man, like I had all this energy and it was so easy to put it back into it because I was receiving it. And now I just kind of, had to coast on it. And, my last few years in school were a lot harder than my first few.
Same. No, same. I struggled. It took me 6 years to finish. Um, Dropped out, took a year off, flunked one semester. And like you said, I had one black professor named Dr. Cheers, who's the only one I felt like saw me. And I feel like people who don't know what it's like to go to like those universities or know what it's like to be in a non-predominantly like, black space, like it's a real thing. And being seen in an environment where you're supposed to be learning and developing yourself is so important to keep going. Because I don't know, like it may not even be that the work is hard, but just everything around it, like that's how I felt. It's not that I couldn't do the work, but it was like how my life was, and just I don't know, it's everything else going on around me. Were your dreams as a little boy always to be a writer, to be a journalist? Was that always your dream?
Not that's it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I remember I had going into my senior year of high school, there's a lot of pressure. Um, I had okay grades. Like I had good enough grades to get into school, but I wasn't going to like Princeton or nothing like that. Like I knew I wasn't about to like be nobody's doctor or anything. So I just started trying to think like I remember for like 2 weeks I wanted to be a chef. My dad was like, "Nah, I don't think you want to do that." I was thinking social work for a little bit, and then I had a meeting with my guidance counselor, and she was like, "A good career is like taking a skill and mixing it with a passion." So she's like, "What's something that you're good at? What's something in school that you're good at?" And I was like, "I like to write. I do a little poetry, I did short stories and stuff like that." Um, I wasn't really into nonfiction yet, and like journalism. And then like I felt like I was always sort of passionate about sports. Like growing up, I felt like I was like a walking encyclopedia. Always wanted to know about different stats and like players from the past, because I was raised around a whole bunch of older men. So like when they talked about, the athletes that they watched growing up, I wanted to, be able to contribute to the conversation instead of, talking about the guys I've viewed coming up. Like they, talking about Muhammad Ali was like, whoa, what does this little 9-year-old know about that? So when I really came down to it, I was like, I could be a sports writer. I want to see the world. That's a way to do it. You got to travel with the team, and like even though I'm working, reporters get to come in, the day before the game and then leave the day after the game. So I'm like, cool. That's like, I'll get to see a whole bunch of cities just by default. My job would be a whole bunch of fun. I'm just watching sports games all night and telling stories. I didn't think I would go as far as I did with it, honestly. Like I thought the peak would be maybe just getting a job in my local newspaper or something like that. But when I met that professor, he really made me think that I like could go super far with it. And that's when I got kind of like obsessive about it and started like really trying to go as far as I could with it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You said you were raised by older men, or you grew up around older men?
I grew up around, so I've always felt like I was an old soul. Just being around my grandpa or grand multiple grandpas, and then I just always wanted to, like, even from a young age, I always appreciated other people's experiences if they were willing to share them. Because I know life is hard, and it's just like if you're willing to sit down and actually share, what you've learned throughout your years of experience, you're doing me like the greatest favor ever. Like, granted, like I can't live my life exactly how you did, but at least understanding and knowing what I might see or might experience along the way, just it's nice to have that cheat seat. So I've always um really flocked to older men. I love going to the barber shop and just like listening and just hearing about how things were, and sort of their views and perspective on the world today.
Okay, 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 okay. Same here. I've always loved being around older women, and even to this day, like my f- my friends are like 40 plus. Like I usually don't even hang around my peers my age, just because I always felt kind of like you. When I would be talking, I feel like people would get quiet and they'd be like, "Girl, what are you talking about?" Like, and I kind of felt like weird. But it wasn't that. And now that I'm 26 now, I know that I was just ahead of my peers. And that's okay. Sometimes somebody has to be ahead to get them to come along too.
Right.
But I know that I was raised by my grandmother, an older black woman. So I think that also helped in my perspective, in my wisdom, and all that stuff. So I can totally relate to that. Were you raised by your mom and dad?
Yeah. My dad, he always worked 2 jobs. So when he was home, he would sleep. So like he's a fantastic provider. And to be honest, I sort of resented him for that growing up, just because like I wanted more time with him. And so I mean, I'll admit I'm more of a mama. I was around my mom all the time. I got 2 older sisters, so like I definitely grew up to see a woman's perspective a lot because I didn't really start getting a little bit closer to my dad until he worked at Honda throughout the day, and then he had a paper route at night that he did 7 days a week, and I would help him on the weekends, and I started seeing just how much it was affecting him being away from his family. Like, I always had this idea in his head that like he just liked work more than being around us, and that he just felt like it was more important. Because I mean, like we weren't like struggling, so it didn't make sense to me why he felt like he had to work so hard. But I mean, he grew up in the hood. He grew up really hard, so he never wanted us to like struggle through that. And to him, that was how he was showing love to us. So like it kind of hurt growing up seeing that like in his eyes, like as hard as he was working, to us he was still failing when he was really just trying to be there for us. But it's just like, man, like you really are between a rock and a hard place, because it's like you sending us to a good school, you doing this, you making sure we got back to school clothes by working these crazy ass days. That's how you're showing love, but we're not recognizing that because We're just upset that you aren't here. And it really broke my heart. And it took me a long time to really see that. Because, like, we really, like, I was very intimidated of him growing up. Like, it seemed like he was always moody and upset because, he was dead tired. He was working on 3 hours of sleep. And just as I've gotten older, I've started to, see his perspective.
Ooh, that's so mature of you. You know that. Some kids never get to that point. Like, never. Because, I mean, if a man's job is to provide for his family, he's done everything right. I mean, everything else, of course, is beautiful. It's an extra. But if his job is to make sure y'all not homeless, y'all don't have to go out there and sell y'all bodies, join no gang. Like, your father did what he was supposed to do. And like you said, he was sacrificing his time with his family, you know? And like you said, he probably cried or felt the same type of way. Like, wish I could be there with my son. I see I see the way he looks at me, when I'm tired, or I don't know. I just feel like it's, but I'm glad you were able to take that and be like, you know what? My dad, he was a great father, even with the obstacles he had and stuff. So
Right.
beautiful perspective. Okay, so what made you want to go to college? I would say, what was the motivation behind that?
My mom, definitely.
Your-
So,
Yeah,
growing up, my mom worked like every job you think, and she just hated it so much. Like, she just hated having jobs. She wanted a career so bad. And I remember when she decided to go back to school to be a teacher, and just seeing how much like of a grind that was for her, working in the mornings and then going to school. I would go to school with her and just chill in the library while she was in class. And I remember just how proud I was when she got her bachelor's. And it was crazy because she actually ended up getting a job in my school district. So it was just like I was over the moon. Like, it was so cool to go see her after school, see her with her class, and just how much energy she put into them. I mean, like, she would stay up like crazy long nights just creating the most cool interactive games and like different lesson plans. Like, she just never started to coast ever. If she had a student that didn't get anything, like, she would, like, I think my mom is like one of the most passionate teachers I've ever seen. And just to know that, like, she worked that hard just to get to that point and then went back to school to get her master's. So now it's like I think she's what, maybe like 15, 16 years in now. And just like she still wakes up upbeat, can't wait to see her students, never doing the same thing twice, always coming up with new different ways to, be innovative and like keep the kids engaged. It's inspiring. So when she did that, I knew I had to find something to give me that passion and drive to to approach my job like that.
that's so nice. You're very in tune with your parents, huh? Your people. A lot of kids don't be knowing what's going on with their parents. That's
Oh,
good.
yeah, they've opened up more. Um I mean, we were just observant. Because I got an older sister that's 8 years, and then one that's 5 years. So I mean, they were real in tuned to what was going on with the parents, and like we basically, I wouldn't say we raised ourselves, but like we had to basically do a lot of learn to household chores. We couldn't be too dependent, and so I mean, there was plenty of times where they were able to break down things that maybe I didn't get at a young age. So I always appreciated that too, just being able to see the world from their perspective as rising adults.
Okay, okay, I love that. I'm a big sister of four, so it's nice to know that y'all listen. Y'all might listen. Y'all
Yeah,
just might listen for real. Okay, so what city are you from and what was it like there?
I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Um, so I grew up on the outskirts of the suburbs. So I went to a really good school, but I lived in like a regular apartment building. Like, you didn't go to bed like feeling unsafe, but it wasn't like like so like the school. A lot of the kids did have like $1 million homes, like white picket fences and stuff like that. So it's very interesting because it's very interesting, and looking back on it, it's very stupid because there was this sense of like there was this sense of like shame about going to the school because it was like, oh, we're not rich, but people that actually go to like rough schools think we're rich and think we got it made and think we're soft. And like, I didn't have this problem, but I could tell that my sisters did sometimes, like with overcompensating and like feeling like they had to like be too like they had to prove their blackness around, our family members or like other people, and then also still having to fit that mold around, their white peers. So like it's kind of silly looking back on it because it's just like you should have just been appreciative of, the opportunities that we had. But it was always like, dang, it's like, man, if we're here, we're jealous because we don't have we don't have the $1 million homes and the country clubs. But if we're with our family, we feel inadequate because we're not struggling hard enough. So it's just like it kind of it's disappointing to think that they kind of couldn't appreciate as much as they could have, or just appreciated their own situation. But yeah, it was interesting growing up in that kind of environment because it was just like they weren't content. Like obviously people who are struggling don't want to be struggling, but they make the best. It comes with their personality. They have their swagger, their grind, and they pick up great traits because of that. But they're also great traits that you can pick up from having a silver spoon. You just got to do the best with the cards that you were dealt.
No, you sharing that story is a story a lot of people struggle with because I'm like I said, I'm from the hood. I would say HBCUs all my life from elementary to high school, all black principal, right? So I was blessed. And in South Central, it's predominantly Mexican and black, anyways. So that's just what it was. But in college, my friends, black women, were both from the suburbs of Sacramento, California. So completely different. I also read an article recently that said that black students who get bussed out to white schools, they tend to like have worse experiences than their black peers because they're in communities where they may not feel safe, heard, or see other people that look like them. So I think, like you said, like it's all about how you look at it. But I do think that if we had affluent schools where black children can feel safe and validated, we wouldn't have to worry about these things either. Because although I didn't go to like an elite high school, everybody I went to high school with is like my family because we all look the same. We all come from that similar type of,
Right.
So I don't know. It can be a struggle. So that might be another thing that we have to work on just for our kids and our youth when it comes to education. Anyways, what has been one of the most difficult things for you to overcome, whether it be self-esteem, confidence? Um,
That's a good one. Shoot, I'm going through overcome it right now. But I would say imposter syndrome is definitely something that can be tough. I feel like in a day and age, we're so obsessed with where we want to get to that we don't appreciate the journey. Um, it's you can't, social media is great. It has so many different, great things about it. But one thing it also that's not great is it sort of attacks your insecurities sometimes to where like if you feeling like you don't, like for instance, if you feel like you're not traveling and seeing the world enough, all you're gonna do is see people in trips and going on extravagant, vacations and stuff. You're just like, hey, like I'm just being local. And it's like, well, you're being local because you're being financially responsible, getting your bread up, and you don't want to, go on a vacation and set yourself back too much. Like, it's okay. Like, it'll happen if you just stick with it. So I would say that's my thing is just like understanding that like my journey is my journey and I can't really rush it or like put a time on it or like have um too high expectations. Like I would say like that is the number one lesson I've been learning, especially the last 4 months, is like expectations, man, are so dangerous because you see a vision for your life and you get so convinced that you like deserve it and that it should go exactly the way you want it to go. That like when it doesn't go that way, like it could really like break you and like devastate you. And it's like if you would have just went into that situation like open minded, like you would have been able to adapt or like make the most of it. But when you have that certain picture of like, oh, it has to go this way, any diversion from that can really like shake you to your core.
You're so clear and concise. It's funny when you pause. I'm like, okay, he stopped. I'm used to people just going off, you know? It's funny. That's good. I like that. I like that. I appreciate it. It's okay for
Sure.
people who do. But okay, we're almost coming towards the end. You just been giving me so many things, blessing us with so many good information, so many great stories. What does happiness look like for you?
Yeah, good question. Cause I feel like I'm in a real like transformative time of my life right now. Um, I feel like for the last few years, I've been so like I've been chasing like instant gratification, and like sort of my view of happiness was like, oh, am I feeling happy in this moment? Like at this exact moment, am I happy? Am I joyful? And if I didn't feel that way, something was wrong. And I'm realizing lately that like that's not necessarily the case. Like there are gonna be days that you're gonna wake up and you just don't have it. Like it's just, your emotions might just be out of whack, or you might just got some terrible news, or you gotta go to that job you don't feel like going to. And just because you down doesn't mean like you really down. Like I've noticed like the way that I've sort of my happiness has shifted is like if I feel like I'm making some type of progress or just doing anything like there are gonna be days where I feel like I could, take on the world and I'm super, super productive. And then there are days where I'm just like, you know what? I'm just happy I got out of bed and ate today. Like that's all like it was just one of those days. I got up, I ate, I showered, and it's just one of those days. We're gonna take that win because that's all we got. Um so yeah, I've just been looking at happiness way different. Like I feel like happiness for me is the willingness to go on. Like as long as I feel like in my life that I can make it and I still have faith and belief in my friends, family, and the people around me, I feel like that's true happiness. Like trying to be happy 24/7 is just never going to work. And I think real happiness is understanding like on those bad days that it's going to be okay.
No. Okay, we up in church today, right now. You're giving me some stuff to really take because I used to think myself, I used to say I would overthink myself into a stupor, like just devastating myself. And my dad would always say, Kamerie, you make yourself depressed. You make yourself because you just be overthinking and trying to just relax. My dad's a cancer, just one day at a time, Kamerie, just one day at a time. And just like you, I felt like if I wasn't knocking all my goals out and creating all type of content and just I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm 20, I'm too old, I'm like, Kamerie, you're actually breaking yourself down by doing that because now the next day I got to pull myself up out of that because I couldn't just be in the moment and be grateful for life itself. And like you say, sometimes I just wake up and be like, God, I'm really still breathing. Like I didn't get in a car accident. That person died, like, or I could be homeless or I could lose my job, but I didn't. So
Right, right. As
thank you for
small as the
sharing
wins be sometimes, like as long as you appreciate it, it goes such a long way.
that. And I think that's how depression can also like come about as well, is when you don't practice gratitude. Just be grateful. Just be grateful. And acknowledge that. Acknowledge that those small wins. You brush your teeth this morning, acknowledge that. You know what I'm saying? You didn't drink yourself, drunk. Acknowledge that. That's a win. Okay, so what do you know about love? Have you ever been in love?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, whew. So love for me, okay. So for the first time in like years, like I feel like my relationships were like back to back to back, like at least in the sense of like Like, yeah, there was a few months in between, but not enough time to truly heal or at least practice self love. And I'm in a period of time where like I have that opportunity to do that now, and I'm really appreciating because I'm noticing like love doesn't always have to be romantic. Um, there's this, of course, it's fun, to have a good going a romantic situation, but also like when you truly learn how to love yourself, and it's not easy. It's like just like it's not easy loving somebody else, it's not always easy loving yourself, especially when you got to sit with your thoughts all day and your insecurities, and you got to fight mentally breaking your own self down and hurting yourself and disappointing yourself. So I've just really been thinking about like, you know, the difference between I would say love now versus how I used to view it is like when you're in a relationship, sometimes you're thinking about, oh, how can this person make me feel? Or how can this person, influence my day, influence my mood, or, sort of being. And with self love, you get that power back to where it's like, you know what? I'm having a down day, but I know I feel good when like I do my hair or like I get a haircut. Like I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do this. This is self love for me. Or like when every time I clean my car, I feel like a new person. Cause like the state of my life is always reflected in my car. Like if I'm going through it, my car is jacked up. If I'm feeling better, it's clean. Ain't nobody eating in it. Got a car wash, and like just little stuff like that. Like when you really think about little things that like, oh, I'm doing this for me because I appreciate it. It might not be the biggest thing. I don't gotta wine my dime myself. I don't gotta take myself out for a $400 dinner. I could just be like, hey, I want to watch this movie, or I want to, you know, do this activity, or go for a walk and just, sit still in nature and everything. And yeah, I would just say that like that's the way I view love different. Because like for the last few years, like I said, like they were just back to back to back to back. So I was so dead set on the sacrifice element of love. Just like the giving, thinking about somebody else before thinking about me. And don't get me wrong, like to make a relationship work, you definitely gotta have some compromise. But when you get so enveloped in that for such a long time, you really can lose yourself and lose what really makes you happy and what makes you you, because you're so obsessed with trying to be the perfect puzzle piece to this, ever evolving puzzle in a relationship.
No, that's beautiful. A lot of young people, I think, also can get caught up in that. And my dad used to always tell me, Kamerie, especially your first relationships, don't be so, don't take them so hard. He would tell me like, you're still learning yourself. Y'all both still learning yourselves. Like you're gonna meet more people, or you still learning yourself. You might, like it's not that deep. I have a mentee who's 18, and I just try to tell them like, just take it light, y'all. Take it light. Have fun. Your partner does not complete you. If you believe in something higher than yourself, I feel like God is enough. Like I don't need another person to complete me. Y'all come together complete, and y'all make, that thing whole. But that's just my experience. And then also being in Aquarius, I feel like I didn't think I had an emotion. I thought I was just, you know, just I don't know, blank. And anyways, okay. Have you ever had somebody pass away in your family or close to you?
Yeah, we've dealt with death. Uh, I didn't deal with death a lot growing up, but it's been a few deaths recently. Like my
Yeah.
uncle passed a few years ago to cancer. Um, One of the toughest deaths in my family was my uncle. I think I was about 4 or 5, and he committed suicide. And at the time, I really didn't understand what was going on. Um, I remember we had like a family reunion, and at the time, I'm just thinking about the fun, the family, and, playing volleyball, and you know, hot dogs and everything. And didn't really realize that my family was mourning and trying to sort of handle that in their own way. Um, Now that I'm older, death has been sort of interesting to me because like it really shows that like you can't take what we get for granted. Like life, it is so easy to feel entitled to life. You wake up because think about it, like when you get sick, you want to start eating right. That's what everybody's diet is so good when they sick. They want to eat whole foods and vegetables and all that. And then as soon as they feel good, they go back to eating the junk that made them sick. And I feel like that's the same thing about life. It's like it's not until we like start going through it and start things start looking bleak that we start appreciating the days and what we have until it looks like we're about to lose it. And that's really sad because it's like sometimes you don't get that chance to think you're gonna lose it and then get it back. Like sometimes it's just taken from you in an instant. So, just because I mean he was a healthy guy. He was like because his cancer was pancreatic. So it was just like, man, like there's so many different things like that could get sick and shut down and you can't function anymore. It's like you never know what could be taken away from you at an instant, and it just made me reflect in that way. Just like, wow, like I could be on this earth one more day or 70 more years, and I don't, I know there's people like, oh, live every day like it's to the fullest. I don't think that means, go bungee jumping every day and, trying to live every day like it's your last. I think it's just living with an appreciation and, an understanding that everything that you do has a purpose and importance. Conversations that you have with people, friendships that you have with people, you should cherish it and just not take it for
Okay. Okay. I'm getting a lot just from this
granted.
conversation.
Blush.
It's fair. No, for real. Like, cause I'm usually the one that people call to like be empowered and feel good, right? Cause I just say stuff. It just be, all type of downloads coming in and it just comes out of me. But I'm feeling that from you right now. And I'm sorry to hear that about your uncle. I can empathize with that. My godfather, my uncle, my dad's best friend, he actually took his life in 2020. July. He's gonna make 3 years now. Very positive, motivated person. He was only 47, black man, had a beautiful family in Hawaii, had a wife. His wife is the one that found him and had to cut him down from being hung. And just after that, I just was never the same after that. It was during COVID too. But him passing away and doing it that way, it made me not care about nothing. Even with my podcast, I don't care. I don't care. It made me not be scary no more. It made me go after my goals. It made me, like you say, take an appreciation for life that if my godfather could leave at 47, like anything could happen to one of us. And like I just felt like it was my job to take my ancestors, legacy and incorporate it into mine so that it carries on. So that's beautiful that you've been able to get that from death. Because some people can't overcome that. Some people can't even get to that point mentally. I couldn't for a long time either. I used to be high every day and just want to be drunk because I just could not. I didn't want my mind to go into reality. That somebody that I thought was so this could do that to themselves. And I think suicide is a conversation we need to have more conversations about. I think it's normal for the human mind to like consider, that. But we need to like create like spaces and like safe like conversations for us to be able to be open and be like, hey, I'm having these thoughts. Like, do you have those too? Or like, what should I do with them? Like, I don't really want to die. I'm in so much pain and I don't want to be in pain no more. So,
Right. There's so many reasons why people even consider it. And like, I think people just think, oh, like, oh, this bad event happened to them. That's why. And it's like, no, like sometimes it's just, people just thinking that they don't have nothing to bring to the world. They just feel like they'd be better off. And there's just so many other ways and like, people want to tiptoe around it. Um, you know, I've been thinking about this for years. Like I really want to get in therapy. I haven't yet, but I know that's something like eventually that is in my future. Cause like you definitely don't want to address that type of problem until it's too late. Like you want to be proactive on it and ahead of it, because that's how you know you really start. That's how you take care of your mental health. It's not until like you already on your last end and then you want to make the changes. It's realizing that like, okay, I've been in a rut and I'm starting. I need some help. I need to talk to somebody or just get that out. So I know that's something I want to do. I know a lot of people have been talking about therapy and sharing how it's just changed their life. So I want to.
I love that. With all that being said, what would you tell the younger Jeremiah?
I would tell him to slow down. I would tell him, um, you got this plan for your life. That's great. You're ambitious. You hungry. You're driven. That's great. Keep that energy. But don't feel like don't feel like it all has to happen right now. Really appreciate the lessons that you learned in the day, because you might not have a chance to really sit down and appreciate those, later. Some of the things that you're going through as a 20-year-old or 21-year-old might come in handy when you're 40. But if you don't really learn those lessons, you're going to get to 40 and you're going to be in the same rut or in the same sort of, cycle. So I think that's just what I would tell them. It's just like understand that life is a journey, and don't try to rush to, what you think is the good, paradise. Really appreciate what you're going through and the people that you meet along the way, and realize that it's, a chapter in the whole book. And stop being so in a rush to get to the end. Once you're at the end, that's it. So you might as well enjoy the journey along the way.